Hey guys, my name is Anthony Bandiero, attorney and senior legal instructor for Blue Gold Law Enforcement Training, bringing another webinar. Welcome to Confidential Informants and Search Warrants. This is going to be a relatively, quick webinar. We'll be here for about 45 minutes or so, and I'm also going to answer your questions. As far as my background, for those who care, we probably have about 40% of you have not been to a Blue to Gold webinar before. So I was retired out of Nevada as a sergeant with the Nevada State Troopers. And I then went to law school to do what I'm doing here. We have a lot of books for you guys. We have a search and seizure book for every single state. So, guys, if you are looking for the best search and seizure book, look no further. This book was written by me for you. You guys are, you need to know search and seizure, but you also don't have time for an 800-page prosecutor manual. I like that kind of stuff. I'm a glutton for punishment, but you probably are not necessarily into 800 pages of legalese. We also have the best report writing books. We have a lot of other books that we're working on. Man, we have. I will tell you, we have some amazing projects in the works for 2025. It's going to be an amazing year. And if you guys like what we're doing, you're going to love where we're going. What's up, Stephen from Henderson PD? Okay, we're going to have a show afterwards. I don't have any guests that are around. Everybody's kind of busy right now, but I do. We'll answer some questions if you guys have them. I don't have any questions from emails. I'm just going to answer your questions if you have them. If not, that's okay too. Okay. You got to check out you guys need a gun show. You're right. We do need a gun show. All right, here. So here we go. There's a little, hey, it is SHOT Show. Okay. So since it's SHOT Show, let me show off this little plinker right there. That little cutie patootie. Okay. There's your gun show, Jose. Actually, I'll show you a cool. I have a very cool gun. I'll show you that at the end of the class. So, and a nice AR that's SBR with a suppressor. It's pretty nice. Damon. So, guys, check out the YouTube channel and all the other stuff. Teresa, our social media director, she's here. Put some links in there. I know people are really using more and more of our social media to stay in contact with us. At the end of the class, I'm also going to have a trivia. So 3 of you are going to be lucky winners of some fabulous prizes from Blue to Gold. So if you're taking notes, if you like to win this kind of stuff, take some notes of some of the important topics that we're going to talk about, and you can be a winner on the show. Okay, guys, again, welcome to Confidential Informants and Search Warrants. Hopefully, if you have any questions, you can put it in the chat. I'm looking at the chat, so that's what I'm looking at here. Some quick disclaimers. You can't be a lawyer without some disclaimers. First is that laws and agency SOPs, standard operating procedures, may be more restrictive when I'm talking about here. I'm going to talk about a particular issue that really kind of comes up a lot, which is, how do you, qualify these CIs, right? What are the courts really looking for when you're trying to put a confidential informant into a search warrant? The next thing is, if you have any doubts about the legality of your actions, push up the chain. And finally, of course, is legal education, not legal advice. I'm an attorney, but I'm not your attorney. So please make sure that you also reach out to them as well, so you get an actual answer that you can count on. All right. So the confidential informant, courts understand that informants are vital for investigations. They can really be the key, the linchpin of successful investigations. But at the same time, they got to be managed properly. You got to articulate them properly. I want you to think about, really, in many ways, the significance and the importance of what we're trying to do here with a confidential informant. What we're trying to do is we're trying to, go serve a warrant at somebody's house usually. They ask us, hey, what are you at my house for? What did you get a warrant for? Oh, Anthony, we got that warrant for drugs. We think you're a drug dealer. A drug dealer? Who's accusing me of being a drug dealer? Well, that's just it. See, we have a confidential informant. And if everything goes right, you'll never know who accused you. Do you see the significance of that? I mean, we got to be careful to not abuse the system, whereas we're using these unknown people, right, unknown to the defendant, and then, hitting their house, which is the most sacred, most protected place under the Fourth Amendment. They don't have a right to cross-examine this CI. If everything goes right, we keep them out of court. So it's a very significant thing, and we don't want to abuse it. So we really want to prove to the court that we can trust these people. Now, the number one issue that we're going to see in case law is why should we trust this person, the reliability? You cannot tell the court how to think. You have to tell the court why to think a certain way. This is so important. I cannot express this enough. In fact, that this issue right here is why I have this webinar. You got to tell the court why they should believe you. Here is an example of what I'm talking about. Affiants have received reliable information from a credible person and do believe that heroin, marijuana, barbiturates, and other narcotics and narcotic paraphernalia are being kept at the above described premises for the purpose of sale and use contrary to the provisions of the law. That is a kind of a classic example of what not to do. This officer is telling the court what to think. The cop is making nothing but bold-faced conclusions, and this is not going to work. As the court said, although an affidavit may be based on hearsay information, now hearsay is basically statements out of court, and need not reflect the direct personal observations of the affiant, the magistrate must be informed of some of the underlying circumstances from which the informant concluded that the narcotics were where he claimed they were, and some of the underlying circumstances from which the officer concluded that the informant, whose identity need not be disclosed, was credible or his information reliable. Okay, so you don't have to tell the court everything about this, confidential informant. If you did, there's a good chance that the defendant's going to learn who it is, right? If you're too specific on what they know and how they know it. But you got to give some information, and you can couch it in terms of within the last 2 weeks a sale occurred, whatever, right? But you got to be somewhat specific, and if you're not, then you're basically making conclusory statements. Okay. Now, let's look at this case. An affidavit stated that an unvetted CI, so unvetted means they're not necessarily trustworthy, personally observed the defendant having personal possession and control over a quantity of marijuana being held expressly for a purpose of unlawful distribution. Okay, there's a little good and there's a little bad here. The good part is that the officer did say the CI personally observed the marijuana. That's good. That kind of helps prove how they know what they know. The problem, though, is where did they come up with the evidence that this marijuana is being held expressly for distribution? You know why they probably know that? Because the CI most likely bought it from that person. But it's not in the affidavit. And if it's not in there, it didn't happen. What is that saying that we kind of learned in the academy? If it's not written, it didn't happen. That is more true now than ever. In fact, I was talking to a prosecutor just the other day about that very issue, where they had a pretty important case, and the cop wanted to supplement the report after it was already submitted and the guy already went and was arraigned and so forth. And the prosecutor basically straight up said, "Hey, look, I'm not going to do it. Because our judges in this city that we work in do not like that. They think you're gonna lie, or you're lying. They think you're making this up now." And basically, the prosecutor was like, "I'm going to save you from yourself. I'm basically going to help prevent a Brady violation by having some judge think that you're making this up now." And by then submitting a report, even though the prosecutor was like, even though I believe the officer, I just know what our judges are going to do. So you got to put the stuff in the actual report, not try to make up for it later. The court said the distribution statement was conclusory and had no information as to why the CI could be trusted. As the court went on to say, the detective presents no underlying factual circumstances to support the informant's knowledge regarding distribution, nor the detective's own belief that these quantities of marijuana were present for the purpose or with the intention of unlawful possession, sale, or transportation, or even that the marijuana would be on the premises when the warrant was executed. So it's missing a lot of information. Probably the most, I don't want to use the word egregious, but it's close to it. Probably one of the most informative cases on this issue is Novembrino. This is a case, it's a little older, but it's an oldie but a goodie, but it's the principles are sound, and it happens today. So what we have going on here is we have an officer who believes that drugs are being sold out of a gas station. Okay, so I'm going to show you almost the entire affidavit. And don't worry, it's not going to be super long. So here's what the officer said. He said, I received information from an informant who has proven reliable in several investigations with the information he supplied that Otto, above description, is engaged in the illegal sales of cocaine and marijuana. My informant stated that Otto usually keeps the drugs in his gas station at the above location. All right, let's take a few seconds here, and you tell me in the chat box, what issues do you see here? What information do you think or issues are going to come up and factors are going to come up in court when we go to court on this? What do you think? So, okay, the word usually, absolutely. There is no time frame, right, Mark? There is no at least some bounds of when this occurred. Did this happen last week? Did this happen 2 years ago? The ownership of the gas station? Yep, absolutely. That will be addressed in this report, but that's absolutely. Let me ask you this: access location? Yep. Do you see anything so far that this informant has proven reliable? Do you see any proof that the informant has proven to be reliable? Yep, exactly, right? So that's like, where does this cop, right? Get off telling this judge how to think, right? Where is the why to think? Where is the informant has proven reliable in 3 investigations, three arrests, 1 conviction, and so forth? Now, the other thing is that he's saying that Otto is engaged in these drugs. There's nothing about that and so forth. So let's continue. But right off the bat, this is 100% conclusory. This has no facts at all to prove that this affiant knows these facts and how they know them. Okay, so let's continue. So then the affiant goes on to say, he, the informant, and we want to kind of like he, she, and so forth for pronouns, but he, the informant, also stated that he witnessed Otto dealing drugs from his gas station. Okay, is there anything in there about when? No. I guess this could have been 2 years ago. Now, I'm sure that it's not 2 years ago, but let's go back to the axiom of if it's not written, it didn't happen. I, along with Detective Higgins, conducted a surveillance of subject and his station on Thursday between the hours of 3 p.m. and 7 p.m. So look, let's just pause right there. That is okay. Okay, I do like the fact that the detectives are also trying to corroborate what they're hearing from the CI. So fine, Thursday, I can infer that happened last Thursday. No problem. I have no problem there. But then look what the officer said. The officer said, and observed Otto meeting with several persons after leaving his station and making what we believed to be drug transactions. Now, guys, I speak cop, okay? I speak cop. I know what this cop is trying to say. And I know that this cop is not referring to several people buying ho-hos in Tic Tacs. I get it. I speak cop. He's probably seeing things that look like drug transactions, meaning, something from a pocket in exchanging cash, and it doesn't go through the register, right? But I got to tell you, who doesn't speak cop? The judge, right? The judge. The judge does not speak cop. Even if that judge has known you your entire life and has known you for your entire professional career and trusts you and believes you, if that judge is doing his or her job, when you walk into chambers and you say, Your Honor, good to see you again, I'm looking for a search warrant. If that judge is doing his or her job, they need to be a blank slate, and they cannot have any preference for you over the defendant. It wouldn't be fair to do that. You wouldn't want to be treated that way. If you had somebody going to get a warrant after you and the judge was a shill and nothing more than a rubber stamp, you wouldn't want that. So because that judge is a blank slate, you got to give them the information they need to really develop that probable cause that there's criminal activity going on, and this does not do it. All this cop is saying is complete conclusory stuff that has nothing factual about it. No facts or circumstances to back this up. Let's continue. During the surveillance, we observed one person making a transaction. Okay, what transaction? What the hell are you talking about? I speak cop. I know the cop is talking about a drug transaction, but judges don't speak cop, okay? They cannot just presume what you're talking about. And also, why do you think is a drug transaction and not for ho-hos and Tic Tacs? Okay, so making a transaction with Otto and checked on his vehicle and called the narcotics squad to inquire on his relationship with drugs. It's rocky. They told us that said person has been arrested for cocaine and other violations, and they felt that Otto and the other person are involved in drug activity. Guys, this is so problematic. So problematic. Exactly. Right? I do like the word believed, by the way, over felt. Just my personal, there's better words than believe. But I don't like the word felt personally. It just seems subjective, right? But so does believed to a degree. But yeah. So let's talk about this. So the first thing is we have to describe that drug transaction, right, guys? We have to describe it. Right, observed. I do like Jonah, I do like that. That's good. That's real good. So I observed, right? I learned. I was told, whatever it is. I like that. Absolutely. So why do we think this is a drug transaction? What about them going behind the alleyway, right? What about them looking around on their shoulders? What about the fact that a small item, again, was paid with cash and it didn't go through the register? The other thing about this, let's talk about what they learned from the narc squad. Why is this problematic? Can you guys tell me, like, when they said, hey, the narc squad also, the narcs also told us things, and we want, they said the narcs told us that that said person has also been arrested for cocaine and other violations, and they felt that Otto was also involved in narcotics. Why is that worthless in this affidavit? What's the problem here? Why is that not going to work? Why is the narcs information not going to work in this affidavit? Right. Yeah. Shamika is saying that they're not there at the time. Right. Emmanuel, they need to articulate in their own report. There it is. There it is. So here's the problem, okay? The problem is something called the collective knowledge doctrine, also known as the fellow officer rule. Depends on what side of the Mississippi you are on. However, what I think is going on here is that the officer is trying to have that collective knowledge from the narc to the cop to the judge. But you got to know that the collective knowledge doctrine does not apply to judges. What is the collective knowledge doctrine? Well, I do talk about that in depth in my class, Advanced Criminal Investigations. And the collective knowledge doctrine is basically this idea that what I know, you know, right? So if we're working, me and you are working on a burglary call, and whatever I know, you know. So if you do something, for example, let's say that you make an arrest, and we're working together on this burglary, and you make an arrest, but the court finds out or determines that you did not have enough PC to make that arrest. But they learn that I also knew something about that suspect, that I learned something else through my own investigation, but we're working together, and I knew that before you made that arrest. My information is coming into court under the collective knowledge doctrine. That makes sense, doesn't it? But it doesn't apply here because you can't transfer a cop's information to a judge through this, right? You have to actually put it in writing. That is also known as the four corners rule. Has anybody here heard of the four corners rule? I think that may be something that you guys have heard, like in your search warrant class and so forth. Okay, so for those who do not know what the four corners rule is, that is a doctrine that means that whatever is on that affidavit is what's going to be considered. Even if you had more facts and circumstances that would have actually upheld the warrant, if it's not in the affidavit, it's not going to be considered by a court later on. And so so even if the narcotics squad could be like, well, Your Honor, we'll testify, we'll tell you what we knew about Otto, the court will say it doesn't meet the four corners test. If it's not within the four corners, it's out. Okay, now let's end off with this affidavit and show you this. From the information received from our informant, which is nothing. I mean, literally like nothing. It's all conjecture. And from our observations, which are worthless. The only thing the cop put in there was that he did an observation on Thursday. That's the only thing we can kind of prove objectively, because he's saying something specific. But everything else is purely conjecture about what they saw. We do feel, there's that feel word, right? That a search of Otto's gas station should be conducted for illegal contraband. We checked on the ownership of the station, and it belongs to Otto. Now, I got to tell you, I know the cop did not put in here where he got that information. Was it from the Secretary of State's office and so forth? However, a court would uphold that. And this is actually important information, because somebody brought this up before, like how do we know that Otto owns this gas station? This is important because if Otto was simply a cashier, we wouldn't be able to hit that. We probably wouldn't be able to hit that gas station until Otto was there. Okay. We checked on the ownership of the station. It belongs to Otto. That part's good. Who we have presently in headquarters on this investigation. Otto was advised of his rights and refused a search of the station. Okay, I do like that, by the way. I think that the judge will appreciate, frankly, especially if it's 2 o'clock in the morning, will appreciate that you are asking for a warrant after you try to get consent. Yeah, Judge, I'm sorry. I didn't want to wake you up, but I have to now because he did not consent. And some people will say, well, he can't consent. Of course he can consent. People under arrest can consent and so forth. Who was advised of his rights, refused to search, and also appeared to be very nervous. Do you see the last issue right there, that the officer ended off with another, conclusory statement? Look what the court said here. The affidavit is utterly devoid of specific facts witnessed by the officers from which the judge could have independently concluded that their suspicions were reasonable. The affidavit does not state with particularity what the officers observed or why the officers believed that drugs were being sold. It does not inform the judge. It does not inform the judge in what respect the transactions observed by the officers differed from routine service station transactions. And so here's one of the things that's kind of interesting about this. The court said, well, first of all, we wouldn't have this case if what didn't happen first. A judge signed it. So A judge signed this warrant. We call that rubber stamp judges. Have you guys ever dealt with a rubber stamp judge? Okay. They definitely exist. They exist on DUI blood draws. They exist on misdemeanor charges. Your bigger charges, maybe they exist at 2:00 in the morning, and they exist before the judge is heading out to go to his golf game. So you have judges out there that really don't read a lot of your search warrants. And at the same time, I got to tell you, a lot of the reasons why they're rubber stamp is because they trust you. They have not been burned by you. They find that you are a frank person and you're candid, and they've already kind of vetted you mentally, and they just kind of like say, you know what, I trust Mark Miller. I've dealt with Mark Miller for years. He hasn't steered me wrong yet, and he writes a good report. And then it's that one night that warrant is, maybe subpar for whatever reason, and the judge just signs it. In this case, Novembrino, usually it's very hard to defeat a warrant, even if it's kind of shitty. But this court found that this warrant was the affidavit was so facially defective that they reversed the conviction. Now, that is so Jonah says our, public defenders and so forth, prosecutors and so forth, state's attorneys, they review ours. Right? That's who you're talking about, the PA, right? They review it and send it to the judge. That's really, really good. And by the way, there's a Supreme Court case on that said that if you actually have your district attorney and prosecutor review your affidavit, it's another layer of protection. And even if it is, it kind of like slipped through, a bad warrant went through, it's another reason to uphold it, just so you know. So there's actually a Supreme Court case on that, even though it's not required. And I'm not sure if most people do it. What is the most powerful word in an affidavit? Without question, it is the word because, right? The word because is by far the most powerful word that you can use. This word, quite frankly, fixes most of these issues that we have. If you are saying something in your report and you are thinking to yourself, this is important, this is going to contribute to probable cause, right? The fact that Otto is dealing drugs and I observed it. Well, that's a because moment. I need the court to believe that I saw a drug transaction. And you can't do it by just saying, I saw a drug transaction. You need to say, I saw a drug transaction. And the next word after that is something like the word because. My informant is reliable. No. My informant is reliable because. Right? That's how you fix these issues. Go through some examples, right? As I spoke with the suspect, I observed obvious injuries to his face and a bleeding laceration on his left thumb. That is really not that great. That is a conclusory statement, especially when there's no picture there. It's not obvious if it's not described or it's not in the picture. So we fix this by using the word because. As I spoke with the suspect, I observed injuries because his left eye had burst blood vessels, his upper lip was inflamed, etc. The suspect was about to attack my partner. Therefore, I put him in handcuffs or whatever. No, that is a conclusion. Where are the facts? The subject was about to attack my partner because he said, I'm going to kick your ass. I turned his body 90 degrees, took off his hat, sweating profusely and so forth, right? The stop was made in a high crime area. Maybe you have also observed where you work that courts are pushing back on this. They're like, hey, that's kind of like a blanket statement. Like, where are the facts that this particular neighborhood was dangerous and so forth? So you want to start putting things in here like the area where I stopped the suspect was dangerous because, the number of arrests, CompStat, the computer systems, citizens' complaints and so forth. As I observed a car being driven recklessly in the right travel lane. Well, I got to tell you, when I go to California, I think they all drive recklessly. But that's not a legal opinion. That's just a personal opinion, right? So we need to back it up so that we meet the guidelines of the statute. The vehicle is being driven recklessly because of all these moving violations. The victim was hysterical. Could the victim's mental state be probative, be important in a police report? The answer is absolutely. So we got to back it up. The victim was hysterical because she kept waving her arms around, kept telling me that she wanted to kill the suspect for beating her, and was constantly crying. The wife scared of her husband. No, that's an opinion. Maybe she has a resting scared face. Where are the factors? The wife appears scared of her husband because she kept asking when he would be released from jail, asking if there were battered women's shelters, would he be told about her accusal and so forth. And I searched the vehicle for weapons for officer safety. That doesn't work. Absolutely not. That's a conclusion. You have to back that up. I believe the driver was armed and dangerous because the driver was extremely slow to stop. This is from an actual report. Immediately challenged my authority to make the stop. Closely watched my actions upon approach. Constantly pleaded to be let go with the warning. Had a nervous tone in his voice. Was convicted of robbery in 2019. And this is one of my favorite cases involving an interview with a prostitute at the Cosmopolitan in Las Vegas. I escorted Teresa down to a security room and interviewed her. Immediately apparent to me was her level of intoxication and the smear of lipstick on her face, suggesting that she had very recently engaged in some form of oral copulation based on my experience. Now that is a well-written report, my friends. That is a use, figuratively, of the word because. But regardless, you get the message. Now, thank you, Joan. At least somebody's laughing around here. And with that joke, I want to invite my very good friend, Nick, on. Nick, so we have a class coming up, and I want him to do. Nick, are you ready to talk real quick? So Nick German is one of our Blue to Gold instructors, and he teaches a phenomenal social media class. In fact, he has. Nick, you good? So he has also like a Nick. You can probably talk about the free class you have on too. Like, people can actually take a little snippet of your class totally for free on the Blue to Gold website. Nice. So Mark took the class too. Nice. You're in. Hey, what's up, Nick?
What's going on, Anthony? How are you?
Good. I know you're kind of busy, and and I want to deliver the last part of the class, but I am glad you're here because you do have your online class coming up. When is that class coming up?
Next Wednesday, January 29th at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time.
And what is that class?
It's going to be called Digital Discovery. Everybody's going to dip their toe into social media and open source investigations. So I'm going to give you guys some tips and tricks to use, just a brief overview of some pretty cool things that you can use to help enhance and develop your cases when it comes to social media, open source intelligence. We're going to play around with some pictures. I'm going to show you how you can figure out where some pictures were possibly taken and different tricks that you can do to figure that out as well.
I think people that go to your class, I think they think you're like a magician because you have some cool little tricks where you can find out a lot of information about people and it almost looks magical. Well, I think people understand logically that there's a lot of information out there about you and about defendants,
Sure.
but they just don't realize just how you get that information, but just how powerful the tools are out there.
Right, exactly. And I think one of the cool things too that I do to act kind of like a supplement or almost like a lab to the class is every now and then I'll post pictures on various law enforcement Facebook groups. For instance, the Blue to Gold private group on Facebook that everybody should join. And Yep. I put the picture up and I say, hey, tell me where this picture was taken. And Right. everybody kind of works together and they try different tips and tricks. Like there was one years ago that I put up of a Waffle House and someone was like, yeah, there's a billboard there. You can actually go to this website, look up the billboard number, and it will tell you exactly where it was located. I thought that tip was pretty awesome that they figured that out, how to do that.
Yeah.
So just different things you can do.
Yeah, actually, I had I sent you a picture the other day of a house that I was interested to find out where it was, 'cause I was going to do some, and you got me, I mean, you gave me a lot of information to help find that house, the city and so forth, and it's just crazy stuff.
Sure.
Now, look, so you have two classes. You have a free class on the university. Rick,
Yep.
that up there, right, Rick? That's free. It's for law enforcement only, and you allow prosecutors in there too, I believe.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Loss
And they
prevention
can also prosecutors can attend your class too, but you have to be credentialed.
Yeah, yes. And then on top of that, we're actually going to do a full day version of my class February 10th.
Okay.
I believe it is from 10 Eastern Standard Time to 6:30, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
No, 11 Eastern Standard to 6:30 p.m.
Cool. So look, here's the point. Nick, I thought it was cool that you were around. I wanted to bring you on real quick, introduce you to the audience. So go if you're interested in this class. And Nick, this is for patrol all the way up to detectives and
Well, that's the thing. I'm sorry to interrupt you. I developed this class thinking of every aspect of law enforcement in mind. This just is not for detectives. You're going to benefit greatly by taking this class if you're in patrol. Like, we go over things to do if they're dispatching a hot call and there's just very minimal information that the dispatcher's giving. Or maybe they're doing a field interview and you want to help out somebody on your shift with this information that they're giving over the air. You'll learn with very little information how much information there is to glean on the internet on people that
Yep.
you may run into.
Yeah,
And it's all
and
open
also
source. We're not doing any surveillance on the public or anything like that. This is all at our fingertips.
yeah. Well, look, you are a cop in Maryland, and I say that, and I mean that if you can do it in Maryland, you can probably do it in other places.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Maryland's can be a little restrictive on stuff like this. So I recommend, if you have any questions about the class, email training@bluetogold.com, and we'll get you to Nick, connected with Nick, or you can actually email Nick@bluetogold.com.
Yep. I respond to everybody.
Yeah. So actually, that's probably if you have any question about the class, email Nick@bluetogold.com. And if you want the flyer, if you want the link, if you have any questions, what it costs, and so forth. Yeah, thanks, Rick. And then the other thing is, if you want to put your toe in the water and see how Nick teaches and what he teaches, and just kind of get an idea about what he's all about, he is an absolute expert. Go to the link that Rick put in the chat. Take that class totally for free. It comes with a certificate, and then you'll be like, okay, this is going to be either what I need or what I want, or it's not. Either way, you'll have your answer.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, cool. Thanks, Nick. I appreciate you, man.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Yep. Okay. So I appreciate that. I wanted to bring Nick on real quick because he does have that class coming up. It's going to be, the class is actually getting pretty full. So if you are looking to sign up on that class, definitely sign up quick, but it's going to be a very, very fun class. There are going to be a lot of other students of that class. So it's going to be very high energy, a lot of discussion, a lot of fun. Okay. It definitely will not be boring. Nick will definitely keep you interested in the class. Okay. So let's see if somebody can get this right. What are the two factors that you should articulate when including a confidential informant in a search warrant? So we kind of talked about the pitfalls here, especially being generic, but does anybody know what those two factors are? Okay. Laura says tested. So what's the other factor? It's reliability, which is going to be tested. And actually, Shamika got this one exactly. Examples. That's exactly what it is, actually. So, nice job, Shamika. So it's the examples of the reliability and it's their knowledge. Okay. So that's excellent job. Just excellent job. So these are the two things. Now, at the end of the day, okay, a case called Illinois versus Gates. No, do I have that right? Is it Illinois versus Gates? I know it's Gates. I'm going blank. What's the case? The Gates case. I don't know why I'm going blank on that. I said Illinois, but is it Illinois? So I don't think it is. But anyway, the point is, at the end of the day, they said, look, the two prongs are very, very helpful. And a lot of courts still want to hear the two prongs. But at the end of the day, it's going to be totality of circumstances. Now, some states are still the two prongs. I think New Jersey comes to mind. But even if you're not in a state that requires the two prongs, you should still be looking at these two prongs and just always try to articulate it. 90% of the time, you can articulate these two prongs. Okay, it is Illinois versus Gates. Thank you. So, first explain why the person's reliable, right? And then, in other words, why should you give this person the time of day? And then explain how they know what they know. So what people can you trust? Well, how about past performance? Past performance, especially them helping you get convictions on somebody, is really, really helpful. This kind of proves that they are on the inside. This is probably the main one that officers will use before they actually use a CI in a search warrant. They want to, before the person is vetted, right? Before the person is a reliable CI, they want to know that they're bringing home the bacon. Well, the other one is this. So, declarations against interest. So a declaration against interest is where you actually have like a new person that you're trying to work, especially like, let's say that you stop a car and it's loaded down with narcotics, and you're going to turn this person to a CI. Like, they're working for the cartel. They want to work off their charges. If they bring you the next guy higher up and they participate in the trial and so forth, they can walk on their charges. But are they telling you things against their interest? What that means is, are they telling you things that can send them to prison? That's basically what that kind of means. Are they giving you evidence against themselves? Why does that matter? Because the logic goes like this. A person is being candid with you about their criminal activity is also being candid and honest about other people's criminal activity. A disinterested citizens, neighbors, coworkers, people that don't have an axe to grind against this person, they're not owed money, they're not former lovers and have a child in common. These people are disinterested. The logic is, why would you want to get that person in trouble by making up stuff against them? You are presumed reliable. And the other one is the undercover officer, right? An officer kind of working one case, learns about criminal activity involving another issue and tells you that and doesn't want to be put into the affidavit because they don't want to blow their current cover. Now, so here's an example. A CI gave accurate information 15 to 16 times before. Clearly, that person is reliable, right? No doubt, given that kind of that consistency is going to make that person reliable. Now, one issue kind of comes up is, how do you keep track of your informant's reliability? So here's why I bring this up. With my big agencies, my Las Vegas Metros, my LAPDs, and my Texas Troopers and so forth, they have, first of all, they're very restrictive on who can even run and manage a CI. But my smaller departments, my 10-person department in Texas somewhere, their chief is probably going to be like, hey, look, patrol, if you can work, if you get a person, if you stop somebody who has drugs on them, and some personal use meth, and you want to work them as a CI, you want to try to build a bigger case, go for it, man. You're a full service police officer in this town. I mean, you are everything from patrol officer to deputy chief in my book. So the problem though is, I want to make sure that if you are going to work a CI, okay, and your agency doesn't have the computer system in place, doesn't have the lock filing cabinet where all this information goes, you got to make sure that you're not being a cowboy out there, that you got to keep records. So here's what I suggest, right? You got to keep like the CI. You got to call them like a number, right? CI number 50, whatever that means to you, right? You can make this all up. CI number 50. And in your records, that's either in a lock cabinet at work or in some kind of encrypted database. It could be a Google sheet, something that you can have for life, and you can come up with it again. It needs to have who the CI-50 is, what's their social security number, right? If they have one, what is their date of birth? How'd you contact them? How'd you vet them, and so forth? Why do you believe what they're saying? In other words, if you're ever called in to court and you're like, hey, the judge wants to talk to you, and the judge brings you in and says, hey, officer, have a seat. The defense attorney is saying that you just made up CI number 50, that it's a figure of your imagination, right? It's drop dead Fred. Who is this person? In fact, not only do you have to tell the judge, it's called in camera, which is in chambers, who the CI is. The judge could also tell you, bring the CI to me. They do that in Chicago, by the way. In Cook County, the judges want to see the CI. That's just the way they work out there. So you got to be prepared. Now, if the CI is dead or in another state, that might be a different story. But the point is, you got to be prepared to talk about the CI. Yeah, exactly. So an officer's testimony was inconsistent and uncertain. It demonstrated a woeful lack of proof, not only as to the alleged informer's reliability, but even as to his existence. And Jevin, you are absolutely correct on that. Cook County is a very tough place to police. Very tough place to police. So a CI told the officer when and where a drug transaction would take place. The officer observed the transaction but made no arrest. Can the officer still put that in the tracking sheet? Put that onto the CI's record that helps them, right? And the answer is yes, right? Seeing it still helps prove reliability. Okay. What if the CI told the officer that there would be drugs at a party and the officer saw the party but no drugs? Not going to help, right? Because you got to see it. And this will contribute practically nothing to the report. Now, we have reliability, right? We have, why do we even trust this dude? We have prior performance, declarations against interest, disinterested witness, and we have the undercover cop. Now, how do they know what they know? Most of it is going to be through firsthand observations. They're going to tell you that, yes, when I was at, Bandiero's house, I saw the gun. I saw this massive firearm in California. This is like a 50 cal, by the way. That's a 50 cal in California right there. I saw this massive firearm sitting on Bandiero's, desk, and he's a felon, right? So that's first-hand observations. But if the CI is like putting the pieces together, you need what's called corroboration, right? Corroboration is basically inside information that you have to prove that they told you something that really only somebody on the inside would know. Okay. So again, the key to cooperation is that inside information. Do not just use generic stuff, right? Hey, the guy, the CI says the guy in that F-150 across the street, there's drugs in the truck, right? That's not obviously corroboration. However, if the CI told you, hey, there's a red and white F-150 coming into town, Arizona plates, going to meet a Nissan at the gas station around 1:30. They're going to exchange a box, and that box is going to be full of drugs. That and then you're at the gas station, you see that interaction, that is absolutely corroboration. Draper is a good case on this. Old school case in the U.S. Supreme Court. So a CRI, this is a confidential, reliable informant. This person's been vetted. Told an officer that the suspect would return from Chicago, already suspicious behavior, on Monday or Tuesday. Provided a physical description. Described what he was wearing. That he would be holding a tan zipper bag and habitually walked fast. Sounds like me. All of this was corroborated. That is an example of what we're talking about, this inside information, right? Okay, some takeaways, and we're going to do some trivia. And if you guys have any questions about anything, I don't care about, if you want to talk about searching cars, about, the Fifth Amendment, you want to talk about the First Amendment, the Second Amendment, whatever you guys want to talk to about, if you want to ask, then I'll stick around. But some major takeaways for this class is all conclusions need to be proven, right? Please, please, please. The most powerful word in the police report is the word because. You got to articulate reliability, and then you have to articulate how they know what they know. So that's what I got for you. One last question before we do the trivia. The Third Amendment. I'll talk about the Third Amendment, right? Did you guys find this information useful, right? I hope that you did. Give me a thumbs up, give me some feedback. It means a lot to me. I cannot see you. I cannot hear you, but I hope that you got something out of this class. I appreciate it. With that, please also join us on social media. It really means a lot to us. For my friends who are watching on demand, this is where we say goodbye. I'll miss you, but the main thing is keep signing up for these. And hopefully, if you're able to attend in person, please do. If not, that's okay too. At least you can have the downloads and so forth. Okay? Somebody did ask me today if they're allowed to share these links with other people. And I'm like, you can share with whoever you want. It actually is a compliment. Okay? All right. I appreciate you guys on demand. For those who are here live, don't go anywhere. We're going to do the trivia and then we're going to answer questions.